Well, I think we're just after 11. I think we should be able to go ahead and get started today. So let me just again introduce myself real quickly. My name is Scott Livingston, and I am head of marketing at Gideon Taylor, and excited for that opportunity to tell our story. And we have today two just absolute rock stars. They may not want me to call them that, but they bring a world of experience and able to help us with a lot of information and insight today. And I'm really excited to give them a chance to tell us more about what you out there, people that we may or may not have met. Some of you may be customers. Some of you have looked at maybe some of our solutions, or you're just out there trying to find answers to some really challenging things that you face in your day-to-day work. And so today we're going to hopefully provide you with some key principles and insights and actionable things that you can do right now to help you move forward and actually make some decisions. Those decisions are heavy and significant, sometimes very expensive, and we want to be able to provide you with good, helpful, actionable information that will make a difference for you. So with that, let's get started. As I mentioned, we've got Andrew with us today and Paul. If they want to share anything more about themselves, they can do that after I've given you kind of an overview of what we're going to do today. And as you'll see, we're going to take you through a journey. We're going to try to help you understand a little bit better what that looks like. And I'm especially excited to share some of these tips, and I hope you'll take notes. We do plan to, we are recording this session, and we will share this recording in its entirety with everybody that's registered today. So don't have to take notes, but you will have an opportunity to hear some really important insights from Paul and Andrew. So I hope you'll pay close attention. We have a great example of how one organization has done some of the things that we're going to share with you today. And then, of course, we want to introduce you a little bit more to us. And if you have further questions, would like to learn more about us, we would be more than happy to connect after our visit today and help you with that. So let's see, what do we got next? We want to start with a little poll of just kind of get a feel for what you are doing out there in terms of where you are in your journey with the cloud. So let me launch this poll. It's just got 4 simple questions you can see right there.
Let's define terms for that.
Yes.
You want to specifically do that, when we say moving to cloud, and we'll actually speak to the fact that that's a very non-descriptive term there.
Yes, that's true.
So let's instead say to a SaaS platform, software as a service platform, like Oracle Cloud Apps, right, or Workday. That's what we're talking about here.
Okay, we've got about 10 in, more added. Interesting so far. Really neck and neck there. That's about half not currently considering and about half beginning to look at moving.
We should have shown this with like horses, like a carnival game where you squirt the water at the target, right?
Right.
I feel that's what we got going here.
Yeah, we'll have to find something a little more fun and engaging to do there. Okay, looks like we've gotten a good, almost everyone's participated. Thanks, everybody. So, gentlemen, you can see we came in at about 57%, not considering this, or at least that move to SaaS and all that, and then just under half that are beginning to think about that. So
one thing, Scott, I want to say there before we get going.
Please.
If you are in that 57% group, don't think that you're going to get no value out of this session. While it is structured around a journey to the cloud, that journey could be 20 years away, and we'll still talk about you getting value today before you get to the cloud. So rest assured, there's quite a bit of content here for you.
Definitely.
Great point. Thank you, Andrew. And that's a key thing. I think everything that we share today should have some relevance to everybody that's with us. So with that, just a little bit more about us. We, as an organization, are committed to what we believe is a very important mission, and that is to help you as an organization grow and succeed and achieve your full potential. And we do that in a number of different ways, and we'll share some of those ways with you throughout our time today. But we can't really even begin to touch on all the things that we're able to help organizations do and have been helping organizations do now for over 20 years. And that track record, I hope, speaks something to what we're committed to as an organization, which is really your success, your growth, and helping you reach the goals that are important to you. So I think that's a good segue for me to turn the time over to our illustrious hosts, Paul and Andrew, and let them maybe elaborate further on this or move forward into our presentation. I will turn my video off, and gentlemen, take it away.
Very good. Only correction, Scott called us rock stars. We're only rock stars in terms of lifestyle. And we watch the same TED Talks that rock stars do and such forth. But other than that, could you go ahead and hit the next slide, Scott? So first off, again, kind of like Andrew said, it's thanks for participating in the poll. We think that for the industry, the path from on-prem to cloud is going to be a very long one, and there's going to be lots of time and lots of value to get out, not just of on-prem, and again, I'm falling into confusing nomenclature in saying to the cloud, because I think everybody should be looking at hosting PeopleSoft in the cloud if they aren't already, but journeying to a subscription-based solution, there's no need to rush, and there are a lot of reasons to be very thoughtful about it. And this slide hits a few of those reasons to be thoughtful. If you'd advance there, Scott. So some of the downsides that we're looking to mitigate, both for those, as you do look at the possibility of moving forward, of moving to a SaaS-based product. Replatforming projects can actually impede progress by consuming all of the available resources. We're helping a current client right now who is planning a replatforming process, and they basically had to outsource all of their current platform support to us because they didn't have any bandwidth to help to move forward. And so now they're looking at really a period of time when they can't afford to do much to actually move forward their enterprise systems because they're in the middle of transitioning. Go ahead and hit the next one. In fact, go ahead and bring up all the bullets on this slide, Scott. So let me just, and I'll do a little Q&A here with Andrew. Andrew, is it realistic to expect moving to a new platform to solve all the problems of the current platform?
No, you should actually expect to take on more problems, to be quite forthcoming there, right? All the clients we have seen it to go through this, I think they would tell you that their impressions, kind of dramatically changed from the sales demo to the point in which they went live. So you need to expect the unexpected. And when you look at a system like PeopleSoft, you have 30 years of maturity, and you're comparing it to a cloud system that at best is maybe 10 years of maturity. You can't reasonably expect the cloud system, be it Oracle or Workday or anything else, or even ServiceNow compared to some of the classic CRMs. They're not going to match feature for feature. There will not be parity. And so you have to ask yourself, well, what's that going to do to me? And it's probably going to mean what you're going to hear from all the vendors is, you got to change your business process. The whole point of going to the cloud is to be less customized, to just take it how we do it. But that often does mean changing business process, which means changing humans. And sometimes changing humans is a tall task compared to changing code. So just be prepared for that, really.
Very good. Yes. And we have the business transformation itself, business process transformation is its own thing. And the effort that it takes to do that well doesn't necessarily coincide with the effort that it takes to replatform. In fact, it can be a distraction, and each can be a distraction for the other. So actually getting your business process, it's easy to think, well, if we pull this big, huge lever and we force ourselves down this path of change, it will make us do things right. And that's just, again, not a realistic expectation. It will make you do things differently, but not necessarily right. Doing things in the most efficient way requires a lot of extra work and consideration and thought, which you can do. But we're going to be talking about more effective ways to do that than trying to let a replatforming project dictate it. And do you want to speak any to this last bullet, Andrew, about how unrealistic expectations could increase risk and exposure?
Well, yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you're going to go on a cloud SaaS journey, I think one of the most important things to make sure you have expectations managed with your stakeholders and those who are sponsoring the project is you don't sell it like it's some magic bullet or that it's going to fix all the ills. We had a client who they just went live on HCM Cloud this end of last month. And I was talking to the director who runs the project, and he said to me, Andrew, when we first did this project, we told everybody going to the cloud was about, modernization and this, that, and the other. And now I'm completely changing my messaging points because it's not those things. It's a necessary step in our journey, but we're going to have to go backwards first before we go forward. And so getting that expectation up front clear will save you from some conflict and some other issues as well.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide here. So we're going to go over a few different strategies to preparing. And as we said to begin with, these are strategies that make sense. Whether you're basically, I guess you could say, everybody. I think Andrew would agree with me that everybody should be moving forward and whether you say replatforming, we'll go ahead and say replatforming. Everyone should be doing a reimplementation project constantly for their enterprise systems. You should always be modernizing, always be moving forward. And whether you do that in big chunks or small chunks, that if you hold still, you're falling behind. And so this strategy that we're going to talk about next applies across the board. And that is to build a bridge. So if you look at your current platform and you say, all right, I've got all my functionality in this platform. Hit the next slide there. Thank you. You say or the next button, future platform. If the goal is we're going to move all of our functionality from the current platform to the future platform, that's a big lift. You got a lot of effort to accomplish that. The alternative is to build a bridge. Next. And this idea is go ahead, instead of moving everything to this new platform, and that future platform could be reimagined PeopleSoft, could be a re-implemented PeopleSoft and a modernized PeopleSoft platform. Either way, it makes sense to begin moving functionality and moving features to platform agnostic tools and technology. The advantage of platform agnostic is not just that it's platform agnostic, but that it can integrate with other systems, with disparate systems. So, and we've got a few of our favorites listed in there: eForms, digital assistants, robotic process automation, and all of those on our roadmap can reach across multiple tools, multiple platforms. Our digital assistant already hooks into multiple backend systems, and ServiceNow and Salesforce and Canvas and all these various places, so that it can actually be a one-stop shop in a single platform where constituents can reach multiple platforms that make up your enterprise systems. The advantage for a migration path is that if you've moved your functionality there, it is a lot easier to get to a future platform, because the stuff that's already in the bridge doesn't have to move. It just has to be rehooked up to your next platform, whether that is PeopleSoft on the cloud, whether that is Oracle HCM or Workday. So lots of possibilities there. Just one quick example, and then I'll let Andrew speak to an IDA example. One of our clients, the University of South Carolina, implemented our electronic forms package as they were implementing PeopleSoft, and by putting just a few forms strategically in some really high volume areas, 86% of the interactions that people have with that system are through an electronic form. Now, if sometime in the future, University of South Carolina decides to re-platform, and if we provide them with an eForms path that allows them to use their existing configuration and port that and use that for a future platform, 86% of their business traffic can stay the same, and there's much less adoption risk, because these processes are tuned for their users. They accomplish exactly what they want them to do, and it can reduce a lot of that headache and a lot of that change management risk from moving to another platform. Andrew, anything else you want to throw in there on the?
Yeah, I would just say, when you look at this slide, don't misinterpret this as solely a strategy for managing risk in a future platform project. At the end of the day, when you talk about some of these applications like HCM, it is there to do HCM things all the time. And when you're talking about your users, one of the most important things to do, right, is to walk a mile in their shoes. And from their perspective, they don't think in terms of HCM and financials and ServiceNow and what have you. They just think, I got to get an expense report done. I got to check my pay stub. I need to get a password reset. These are things that don't really belong in HCM. They're user-centric, they're business process-centric. They need to be tailored to your organization. It doesn't really make sense for them to be in HR in the first place. And so by moving them out, not only do you manage that risk of moving to a new platform, but you'll find that you're better prepared to produce user experiences that align to their perspectives, right? So in the same breath, I'm filling out an expense report in finance, while I'm checking, my last direct deposit. At the same time, I'm finding the policy for if I can expense meals. And then I'm checking my total days off that I have, because after this conference, I want to take a couple of days off, right? In the employee's mind, these are all one big thing. Like, this is my week. I'm going to take a trip on a conference. I'm going to take Friday off, make it a long weekend. So they need to hit multiple systems. It's not just HR, even though it might seem that way, or it's not just finance. So doing this, affords you a lot more flexibility to tailor to the user.
Thank you. And aggregation and integration are really trends that are even bigger than the move to cloud trend. That's aggregation and integration have to happen, and that's really where most of the benefit of subscription-based enterprise platforms comes from. Okay, next slide here. So investing in agnostic tools, we already spoke to quite a bit of this, but among the things that we love are conversational AI, using the power of artificial intelligence and machine learning to drive service to your constituents. Robotic process automation is a great tool to all the way from the desktop, where we can add great efficiencies to processes that are otherwise manual and time consuming, all the way up to helping to negotiate interactions between SaaS systems that otherwise have a difficult time talking to each other. You've got process automation, which we've been doing for years and years in the PeopleSoft space, and now doing more broadly across the enterprise. And then, of course, you can be looking at data aggregation, at business intelligence, data visualization. Back one slide there, Scott's still working on it. Haven't finished that course yet. Don't take away my fork. And data visualization, and analytics. All these are growing feature sets that don't have to be married to your ERP platform. They can be applied more generally. And so, in talking to people, at least one of the things that I hear about, it was interesting at the Alliance conference this year. I heard at least 2 or 3 people tell me, yes, we're moving to SaaS, and I would ask, well, what benefits do you expect? And they'd say, I don't expect any benefits. I don't expect any improvements in feature or in service. In fact, I think it'll be a step back, but we just feel like we're worried about the longevity of the current platform. Now, I think that those fears are somewhat overblown. I think that there's a very, very long runway, and that demand will require it. But if you do have a fear of support ending, and that's a reason for replatforming, then reduce your dependency on the platform. Look to have these features, like Andrew said, places where they more belong, and a lot of that can be in a platform independent or a platform agnostic space. Okay, we hit that one hard. Let's go to number 2. So don't shift your paradigm without a clutch. There are benefits to a cloud journey, and that's cloud. And again, cloud is a broad term, but there is value to having your enterprise systems hosted outside of a localized data center. And so, as if you are thinking about going to a SaaS product, which is inherently in the cloud, 2 migrations might be faster than 1. It might be actually better to move your PeopleSoft system to the cloud now, to move out of your data center and onto, for example, we really like OCI, Oracle's cloud infrastructure, as a great destination for PeopleSoft. And getting there can actually make your SaaS migration, whenever that happens, much simpler, because you've already broken out of the data center. You've already resolved the questions of whether your integrations can live outside the data center, and all these other issues that you've handled. It can really simplify the next process. Go ahead, Andrew. Any comments about that?
Yeah, maybe I just add a little bit of an anecdotal story. We have a client going through a business case analysis to move to an HCM SaaS solution. And I spoke with a guy who works in HR strategy and HR system strategy, and he said something to me I thought was just right, spot on the money. And he said, said something to the effect of, Andrew, you know how these HR system change business cases go. And I said, well, no, what do you mean? He's like, well, there's no ROI. The money you spend to move to a different HR system will not generate any ROI. And it makes that very difficult to sell. And in certain organizations, that's just going to hit a brick wall. Now, these things here on slide number 2, all of these generate ROI. You can create a case, you can prove it, you can save money. Now, that one's easier to sell. You can bring that straight up to the CIO, right? Once you get that approved and you show that you can save money, then step 2, going to the cloud, not only becomes cheaper, but you've already spent the last 2 or 3 years reaping the ROI from these moves. Right. So when you look at that in the totality of a 2-step kind of path, it's better financially. It's better from an ROI business case standpoint too.
Very good. And other pieces that can involve are going to managed hosting services. That's having a trusted partner help host your software. We can do that, by the way. No shameless plug. That's something that you don't have to do just when you go to a SaaS solution. That can be done on your current platform by rehosting it. And you can also look at, all right, if we're really looking to end up in a place where we don't have internal developers, start outsourcing that development to a trusted partner. That's where you're trying to get to. If you're really trying to move to a SaaS world, so start now. That can be a huge whiplash when you're forced to move all at once. Get started, and we're doing that again for one of our clients. We've taken over development of their PeopleSoft environment while they move through a long project of moving to a SaaS platform. And yes, you can look to retool onto a DevOps rhythm of doing continuous delivery. It's one of the benefits of a SaaS model, that you get continuous incremental delivery of features. It can be a double-edged sword, but there are advantages to it, and there's no reason you can't do that in your current system. It just requires some proactive effort rather than reactive effort. And then looking at, if you look and say, well, hey, one of the reasons we're thinking about SaaS is because it looks so cool. It's a updated look and feel. Designers touched it in the last 10 years. Do you really want if your existing system really is looking outdated, if PeopleSoft is looking really outdated, do you want to keep looking outdated for 3 more years? You can fix that. You can actually, PeopleSoft can look just as fresh and new as, and in some cases look a lot better than some of the modern SaaS apps if you get moving on it. Okay, next slide. So rekindle the flame with your business processes. Fall in love all over again with how you actually get your business done. You're going to have to rethink your business processes, but you're not going to have time to do it if you're in the middle of a replatforming effort. You're not going to have time to do it well. You're going to be forced to do it in the quickest and dirtiest way sometimes. So if you actually take the time now to do business process optimization, that knowledge is portable. Instead of moving processes that you don't even know why you're doing them anymore, instead of forcing them through a conversion so that you're now on a new system doing things that you don't know why you're doing anymore, put the work in now and optimize those business processes. You can take that optimization with you. Andrew, what any experiences where you've seen people thinking that things will get better just by, well, I guess we already answered that to some extent, but any comments you want to add on to this slide?
Yeah, maybe I'll just say quickly, we do a lot of work with digital assistants. It's really a form of automation of a process that the user interacts with. And whenever you look at automation of a process, you can think about a car factory. That process has to be clean and well-defined. You can't have 35% of your instances be exceptions to your rules. So no matter what technology you use, you will have pain if the business process isn't clean, especially when it comes to automation. So I think the point here is that don't expect the paint on the walls to suddenly fix the plumbing. You got to put some attention into that plumbing, and you should do it before you do such a jump, because it'll end up being a more efficient, cost-effective path.
Definitely. We'll often do in our business process efficiency projects, we'll do discovery engagements before a decision is made as to what tool we're going to use. We think we've got some great tools with our eForms product for business process efficiency, but the deliverables from our discovery process, where we find the efficiencies and try to get from 50 fields down to 23 fields for a business process, that isn't dependent entirely on our product. That's actionable without, it'll cost more and such forth if you do it without our product, but you can still accomplish it with other tools. The business process itself shouldn't be either platform dependent or tool dependent. It should be based on the unique needs of your organization. Okay, next slide. So define up success. So, and this is something of a political statement here, but we all live in a political world. When you go into a replatforming or any project, especially a replatforming project, the baseline for how you're going to measure the success of that project is based on what your previous system could do. And so if your previous system can do 100 things, and then you bring up the new one and it can only do 80 things, that's not going to look good. You want it to do at least 100 and possibly more things. So if you want to make sure that you're getting the functionality that you want, put it into your current system. It will change the bar of what has to happen in order for that any future replatforming project to be considered successful. Get it in there, and then it has to come across. It's because it becomes part of the baseline that is success for your organization. Any thoughts on that, Andrew?
Yeah, I would just maybe say, we get caught in this cycle where the tail's wagging the dog, and we think we should make decisions about our business processes based on the software vendors.
Right.
And I just think that's so backwards. What we should be doing is, what's the business process that works for my organization? And then the technology should be able to handle it. And if it can't, better know that up front, right? Better know that in your selection process.
And it's also another thing that I think that that a lot of business people, even the techies, that we forget and we don't understand. We tend to think that the effort required to bring up new features is primarily a technical thing, that is primarily a programming thing. The reality is it's not. And I don't know how many projects we have gotten to the end of where we've retooled a business process and come out much more efficient on the other side. That we've looked back and said, all right, this was a 5-month project. Would it have been any slower? How long would it have taken to do this project if development was free and immediate? If every time that we had a development need, it was instantly done, and no one had to wait for any coding, how long would the project have been? And the answer is invariably 5 months. It turns out that it isn't the coding that takes the time. It's changing the process. It's changing the people. It's changing the organization flow. So it's worth the effort to get those benefits now, and you put them in, and it's portable. That gets to go with you. Okay, next.
Quick time check, just so you know, we've got 25 minutes left.
Awesome. We'll start rolling.
We should have looked at our presentation business process before we.
Yeah, you think?
Got into
We'll hit these fast. Yeah. You can always do a cleanup process. Everyone can use one of those. Go through and pull out the dead weight. Figure out the things that you don't need to be doing, so they don't have to go with you. shadow systems, make them re-justify their existence. Why are they there? Are they really adding value, or can they be yanked out? At least catalog them, because you're going to need to know when you're going into a replatforming project. Re-audition your third-party systems. You're paying for them on a lot of them on a subscription basis, but are you really getting the value that you need out of them? Doing some cleanup before a big move is just as helpful as cleaning up your house before you move to a new one. Next, replumb the house before the pipes burst. So here we're talking about plumbing in terms of the things that connect things to other things, your integrations. That's always the big question mark and the gotcha with any migration, is how do you keep everything talking to itself or talking to each other? And once you move out of your data center, that's going to be an even bigger deal. Andrew, you've dealt with tons of integrations in your work. Anything you want to add to this slide?
Yeah, I would maybe say and we'll talk about this at the end, so I won't spend very much time at all about it, but integrations will dominate your project plan from a technical perspective to implement any kind of SaaS solution. You could expect some of these clients, 200 plus, need to be rebuilt and redeveloped. And so anything you can clean and streamline now is going to pay dividends later, especially if you can get them on REST frameworks and that sort of thing. So
very good.
That's all I'll say there.
Thank you. Next slide. Build a portable face. What the heck does that mean? The user experience, your user experience should never be generic. Your user experience should be the face of your organization. And going to a SaaS product, you shouldn't be giving up your organizational identity to accomplish that. The nice thing is that a bespoke user experience can be portable. So look for ways that you can, we spoke to that a little bit with the University of South Carolina example, but move your user experience to a space where you have complete control over it, and where you can take it with you to whatever system you might be headed to. Andrew is the user experience guru, so I'll let you speak to this further.
Yeah, I think this really is an important one, because your organization, your users, they're not necessarily like everybody else. And you have to interweave data from these systems with policies and content, and narratives and communications. And so you're going to need something. And what you never want to do for users is have a website with a bunch of links that take you somewhere else, right? The reason why Amazon and Walmart have been so successful is because human nature appreciates one-stop shopping. We don't want to go to 5 different stores to get what we're looking for. And the same holds true in a web-based user experience or a conversational AI-based user experience. They want everything at their fingertips, and an HR system can't be everything by definition. So while it can help you in your move to SaaS later, it can help you today. And the more you can save those users from calling the help desk, the more you can save them from having to re-go through training. That's all real dollars saved.
So those last 2 bullet points look like they're contradicting each other, but it's a point of view. From the user's point of view, if you have built that custom user experience, they don't care what backend system the data is in. Doesn't matter. They're not dealing with backend at all. They're dealing with a combined and a one-shop user experience. From the perspective of those who are in charge of those backend data processes, the backend can be all that matters, because it doesn't matter where those transactions came from. They could flow in from a chatbot, from a digital assistant. They could flow in from an electronic form, or from some other user experience, from a custom web portal. Doesn't matter, because it always ends up where it's supposed to be.
One of the great ironies in how this market has developed is, on one hand, we are back to best of breed, right?
Yeah.
I've seen HR departments running 10 different software applications, right?
Right.
But on the other hand, these software applications are less integratable from a user interface perspective than they've ever been.
Yep.
Many of them are notoriously walled gardens,
Mm-hmm.
where they don't want you to take their site and put it inside SharePoint, for example, or Drupal. And
Right.
and so a word of caution, you will hear vendors say, well, you don't need that anymore. That's all inside HCM. It's just not true. And these systems aren't built to handle the entire experience. And they often just don't play well. So, being ahead of that's a win.
Very good. Next. So consider your workforce as you think about replatforming. Realize that the people that are going to help you get there are also the ones that ostensibly you're trying to do this on behalf of. So you have to think about how are we going to actually keep getting our work done while we go into a replatforming project. The SaaS doesn't make that any easier than any previous ERP implementation. So think ahead, automate now to free things up, cross-train, backfill. Just remember that you need to have your workers be alive and still working for you at the end of the project in order for this to be successful. Okay, next. So a couple last things before we go into user story here. You actually don't need to know where you're going in order to start. Most of this stuff, as we've talked about, if any of it resonated, we weren't talking about any particular system that you might be moving to, or even that you have to move. Just modernizing your existing PeopleSoft system, you can start. And if you're making wise choices and implementing some of these strategies, it will help wherever you end up going. And I'm sure there's more than one nugget of wisdom. Yes. All right. Instead of trying to cram everything into one big project, it never works. It never creates, there's never any, okay, we've arrived, we're done with our enterprise systems. So try to implement a process and an expectation and a standard of continuous improvement. That's more important than getting to some artificial endpoint, especially now that, like Andrew said, we're kind of in this best of breed world and we're spreading across multiple systems. You'll never be done. The important thing is to be continuously improving. And we started all this. I don't know that we actually even teed up the main metaphor we were working with, which is it's sometimes a replatforming project feels like you jump off the cliff and you sew your parachute on the way down. So we're suggesting you actually make your parachute before you jump. Depending on how well you do that, it may affect your urgency to jump. You may say, you know what? We've ended up with an extremely efficient, effective PeopleSoft product, and we can stay here for a while. We've got processes in place that are going to make us successful where we are. Okay. I'm going to let you take over from here, Andrew. Tell us about Northwell.
Yeah, I just want to give you guys a kind of a glimpse into Northwell's journey. Northwell is a customer of Intraseas, and we've worked with them for a long time. They were on PeopleSoft, and they, in 2018, took on a journey to move to HCM Cloud, and they were pretty successful. So I kind of want to share some of the high level pieces of info of this journey. I think the first thing to realize right away is that as you can see here, this was a 3.5 year plan. It didn't even include a lot of manager self-service. It was mostly core HR and payroll talent and benefits. And so you can see it does take a considerable amount of time to pull off a project like this. it was broken into a couple major phases there. So you can see there, mobilize, which is kind of get everybody on board, gather requirements. Architect is kind of design it, right? Configure and prototype was build it, and then you test it, and then you launch it. And so each of those stages were maybe about a year each, just to give you some perspective. When they talk about this journey, a couple kind of things that you all need to be aware of, and they talk about what could they have done differently, or if they could go back to day one, what would they do? So number one thing is they did not probably anticipate and budget for the gaps as well as they would have liked to. I often tell customers who ask me about these types of projects, take 20%, if you can, at least 10% of your total budget, and just put it to the side to fill gaps, right? You're going to find that you need a customization, you need to extend something, you need to build a new API, you need a reporting database, you need a shadow data somewhere. You don't know what that's going to be yet. So take 20% and put it in a bucket that nobody can take, because you'll be glad you did, and you don't have to go back and tell somebody you're over budget. The second thing they said is real-time reaction to executive requests. You need to manage expectations on, right? So they were in a world where an executive would say, I need this report very specifically with these criteria. And they used to, in the PeopleSoft world, have SQL access. I'll have that to you by the end of the day. Now the executives make the same requests, and it often is, we got to log in SR, we're waiting on another party, we don't have direct data access, and it can take weeks. So people who make those types of requests, the executives, getting out in front of it and letting them know that that's part of this journey. These platforms, the benefits you get of not having to run them, they have a flip side, which is not having autonomy and not being able to do things quickly. So, just making sure everyone's expectations are managed there. If you go to the next slide, this talks a little bit about what they implemented. So in that 3 years time, 12 modules, 70,000 employees. So it gives you a little bit of a slice of what they implemented. Is there another slide here? Was it just these two? Yeah, here we go. Lessons learned. So this is a summary of some of their lessons learned. You can see there, right? Obviously, budget and ROI, continuously reviewing it, getting bold sponsorship, because your users are going to have bumps when they start using the system and they can't find what they used to have access to, or there's a feature that's not there anymore. You have to have your sponsorship on board with that and able to push you through it, right? And everything you would expect around governance and change management, being agile, etc. So that's a little bit about their project, real interesting project. And I can tell you, they still have some things they used to have in PeopleSoft that they don't have, that they're still looking to fill.
Right.
But overall, they were successful in that move.
Could you, just before you flip too much farther, Scott, back up 2 slides, back to the accomplishments slide. Just glancing at this, most of these points they're making have to do with the scope of the project rather than the improvements from the project.
Well, you can see, Paul, there is, it's almost as if they saw our presentation maybe before it or they saw it after. But look at the career framework, for example. So as part of this project, they knew the pains. They couldn't run HR job codes the way they did in PeopleSoft, right? Because the features weren't there, the flexibility wasn't there. So they knew to manage that risk, they had to reduce job codes. So as part of this project, they went from 6744 to 1959. Now, boy, what if they would have done that job code reduction before this project?
Right.
How much time and resulting consulting spend would have been saved? So a great example of what we were talking about earlier, right there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, when you say, okay, we're going to take your car and replace it with a bicycle, and then you say, okay, one of the advantages of that is that our cardiovascular system is stronger. Yeah, that's true. And you can force that on yourself. And these kinds of transitions can make you stop doing stupid things. And that's really one of the big values of doing a SaaS migration is it forces you to stop doing stupid things because you can't do them anymore. It also takes away the opportunity to do smart things that require custom tools. But it depends. So it can add up. How many smart things are we doing compared to how many stupid things? But yeah, you were forced to slim down, and they did that. You can accomplish a lot of these things without actually doing the move. Is the point?
Yeah.
There was the lessons learned slide has a lot more lessons learned than the key accomplishments slide has overall benefits. Sorry, that's a little critique on my side. Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I think was interesting, if I just call attention to one more thing on that previous slide, is I think a lot of PeopleSoft folks are used to upgrades and going through what's called a test move, right? And oftentimes when you do an upgrade, maybe ideally you're doing 3 to 5 test moves. You can see here they did 12 conversion cycles because the data models are so different. It just takes many iterations to get it right.
There we go. Okay, eyes wide open.
Yep.
All right, so let's take it to the discussion point. We've got about 10 minutes, call it 8. We'd love to hear your comments. We'll just bring all of these up, and just we're interested in any comments that you'd like to throw in to the chat. We'll respond to those. If you can throw them either in Q&A, or I think the chat itself is open, but feel free to throw some things in there. If you don't throw anything in there, it's possible that Andrew will break into song or start reciting poetry. So he's want to do that.
Save me.
Let's go ahead and stay on that the question slide, just to let people think on that for a minute. While you're chewing on that, if you are less familiar with Gideon Taylor, we do have a very full-featured PeopleSoft practice where we really can do any kind of PeopleSoft project necessary, whether that is an implementation or upgrade, or getting you onto a keep current cadence, or whatever you're looking for there. Beyond that, we have a very long history between Gideon Taylor and Intrasea before we ever joined forces, which happened this year. We've been focused on creating custom experiences and custom value in the PeopleSoft space and in the broader enterprise space, using GTE Forms, which is our bolt-on electronic forms toolkit for PeopleSoft, and soon to be for other platforms as well, including Oracle HCM Cloud is next on our list. Being able to quickly and easily create new self-service and manager and constituent experiences without having to do fluid development, still being able to get fluid and mobile accessible applications for your users is a huge win that has created tons of value for dozens and dozens of clients. And go ahead and hit the next slide. Oh, sorry, we have a question. A question. We are not on SaaS, but I'm curious about the ROI between PeopleSoft and Oracle Cloud ERP. Any feedback would be appreciated. Great question. Andrew, you want to take stab number one at that?
I'll just quickly say on that, the customers we know that went to ERP, which is financials, right? They've had an easier time than the customers who've gone to HCM. I think that's because the use cases are more defined. There's not as much self-service, and the audience, AP clerks and the like, is much more controlled, and it's part of their job. right? So you can tell them this is the system we're using. On the HCM side, it can be more difficult because there's more variety, there's more self-service. Employees don't necessarily have to use the system. It's not part of their job description. So, anecdotally, I've seen people have a budget of maybe 3 million to implement ERP. I've seen budgets for HCM, be it Workday or HCM Cloud. I've seen people at 20 million. I've seen people at 100 million. So it's a much more difficult task. As it relates to PeopleSoft, what's the ROI of PeopleSoft? Well, these cloud applications aren't necessarily cheaper. We just did an analysis for a client, and I think it was in one of our clients in Canada, who their total maintenance on PeopleSoft was maybe $200,000 a year. And so if you took out the cost of the servers and managing PeopleSoft, so you SaaSified PeopleSoft, right? They could probably SaaSify it in the cloud, and we would run the whole thing for them, maybe something around $1 million a year. You know what their quote was for the SaaS application for their employee base? $4 million a year. So it cost them $3 million more per year, and then they had to have an implementation budget. That's why it's such a hard ROI case to prove, right?
If there was if there was an ROI case to be made there, a hard dollar ROI case, you would see it, but you don't.
Right.
I mean, you never see, hey, we went to we implemented Oracle Cloud ERP, and now we're saving $3 million a year. It doesn't happen because that isn't how it works. It just doesn't happen. It's typically more expensive. So you have to look more broadly at, well, where is the value, and does the value come from reducing risk, or from pushing forward organizational goals and organizational IT strategy? Those it's really where you end up looking. Have a follow-up question there, Andrew. $4 million budget for how many SaaS licenses?
Oh, geez, you're gonna challenge my memory there. How many was it? Let me see. I think they were maybe around 40,000 users, something like that.
Right. So and I'll just emphasize again, part of what you were saying, Andrew, is the place where most people look for ROI here is in getting out of the data center, and getting off of local hardware, getting off of relying on local resources to manage that data center, and that is real. Right? There's real ROI to be had there. You can accomplish it by going to a SaaS application. You can accomplish it by moving your existing platform to the cloud and moving to managed services. So and again, to our point, you can do the latter as preparation to do the former. You can. It isn't wasted effort to move PeopleSoft to OCI-based hosting and managed services before considering or executing on a SaaS on a full-on SaaS project.
I don't know if you saw there was a quick comment about SaaS providing only 80% of what PeopleSoft can do, and just important to show leadership how much of PeopleSoft we're utilizing. 10%, 20%, 50%.
Right. Yeah. So thank you. This is let's see, you want to look at that, or you want to speak to that one, Andrew? This is in the comment section or in the chat.
Oh, that's why I'm confused. It's in the other window.
Yeah, it's in the other one.
Yeah. So that number, what percent can SaaS accomplish of PeopleSoft? I don't know if 80% is your use case or hypothetical, but that number that I hear when the clients go through kind of fit gap exercises, it's different for every client because they're usually comparing it to what they do in PeopleSoft, right? Versus, I think saying that SaaS can do 80% of what PeopleSoft can do is not that meaningful because it depends how you use PeopleSoft. And I think that's maybe what you're getting at there. So to really understand that impact, you have to say, well, what are our requirements? And when we talk about our requirements in PeopleSoft, we're not talking about just PeopleSoft. We're also talking about how you've extended PeopleSoft. And so when you look at that, it's not uncommon that you see clients say that we're going to have a 50% loss of requirements by moving to SaaS. So I think I'm agreeing with you. I'm just phrasing it a bit differently. So rather than saying, we're using 80% of PeopleSoft and SaaS can do 80% of PeopleSoft, I would say, the analysis of SaaS's abilities only meets X percent of the requirements we satisfy today.
Right. And I don't want any of this to come across as us saying, don't go to a SaaS application. There are reasons to do it, and it can make sense. It's just something you have to do with your eyes wide open.
Well, it's actually good for us, Paul, right? If you guys want to go to SaaS and you need help, that's a lot of work that's probably coming our way that otherwise wouldn't. So we're moving somewhat against our own interests by saying, just, be diligent and mindful here. We do think everybody will end up on SaaS, I think, on a long enough time frame. Just do it the right way so that you manage your risk and you make sure you're getting the value you were promised.
Right. Yep.
So we're just past the top of the hour. Do you gentlemen have any final things you would like to add before we give everybody our appreciation and finish our webinar?
Yeah, I do.
Last shameless plug. Go ahead, Andrew.
I would just say, I think sometimes what frustrates me, we all talk about SaaS and HCM systems. We're still talking about online transactional processing systems. I mean, these things were introduced in the 80s. I'd really like to see our industry kind of graduate away from that. And we shouldn't be spending so much attention into, which database stores data. And we should start thinking about transformational technologies, things like AI, for example, and more so automation. Automation, by definition, saves our human beings time. And we know with the labor market, we know with the baby boomers retiring, we are going to lose human beings. We need computers to do more. So switching where the data is stored, to me, seems like the wrong target right now, and that the focus really should be more automation. That's my parting thought anyway.
Yeah, and parting shameless plug is if you haven't seen, previous slide, Scott. If you haven't seen the Intrices digital assistant, Ida, please chat with us and get a look, because it is a transformational tool that is already helping enterprises accomplish much higher rates of satisfaction with user interaction, much higher speed of transaction accomplishments to ERP systems with much less human overhead. So come take a look at that if you haven't seen it already. And again, with that, we've been doing this for a long time. I definitely believe the gospel that Andrew's preaching about automation. It's not just about whether you can get it done. It's the satisfaction and the quality of life that the people who are doing those transactions experience. We can accomplish what you're doing now with less people, and the people that you have can be having a much better experience, a much more fulfilling experience, and let the robots do what they do best. Okay, that's it for us. Thanks everybody for joining, and feel free to follow up with us offline for any additional questions.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all so much for joining us. And as I mentioned, we will get this recording out to everybody that registered. And thank you again. We're excited for what we have to share, and hopefully you'll reach out if you do have more questions. We'd love to help you with that, our VP of Business Development, Scott Anton. There's his contact information. I'll leave that up on the screen as we finish up today. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your afternoon and rest of your week. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.